Well, here we are again. And I was sitting outside, but it's too cold. And it happens to be Sunday here and where we live. And most of the people here go to church on Sunday. And then they all come home and get on their lawnmowers and run around the yard for half an hour or so, working up a sweat with the grass. And then you don't see them for the rest of the week. So anyway, so that ended the outside stuff. Okay, now on a serious note. Oh, and besides that, we had another guy, the kind they go and they buy a chainsaw, and then they put two wheels on the seat on it, and then they run up and down the street with it, trying to impress everybody with it. I think they call them motorcycles now. In the old days, they used to call them chainsaws with wheels, kind of, kind of deal. Anyway, we do have something we're going to do here. Again, these are all request videos, and somebody has asked me, and this is a really interesting topic, explaining to family, friends, or spouses the twin flame dynamics. This is a real tricky thing to really try and do a video on because there are so many variables here and so many different kind of situations. But the one thing that I would say right off the bat is if it has anything to do with your friends, your personal friends, close acquaintances, whatever you want to call them, I would say don't even bother initially, because all you're going to do is create a complete state of confusion. If you're in a situation where you're going to be, excuse me if I had to move the laptop here for a minute. If you're going to be in a situation where you're going to have to explain this to family members, let it be said that this should be done only when it's absolutely necessary. In regards to a spouse, and I'm going to start here first. As a general rule, from my perspective and from Nicole's perspective, we kind of disagree with some of the other twin flames that are out there who, spout upon the idea of honesty is the best policy. Let's be upfront. Let's get it done. Truth is the way to go. I don't follow that philosophy at all. In a lot of cases, depending upon the situation with your spouse, I don't recommend you say anything until the right time comes up to do that. Now, the reason that I say that is one of the things that I have noted in doing a lot of counseling over the years for twin flames is when the twin flame connection seems to happen, and I would say probably 95% of the time, and there are spouses involved, the actual situation is such that the marriage or the relationship was already going down the tube in almost all of the cases prior to the twin flame connection. And what it means is basically the person is being presented with the opportunity in the twin flame connection to deal on both sides of the fence with situations, circumstances, and belief systems, ideologies, philosophies, and whatever else that need to be rectified at a personal level individually. It doesn't necessarily mean in a lot of cases, as we are now starting to find out as this twin flame thing is evolving and growing and changing continually, that just because you meet and connect with someone who has all of the twin flame dynamics to it, according to the signs and symptoms of all of these so-called experts up on YouTube and everything else, does not necessarily mean that if you run and tell your spouse that you met your twin flame and you want to be together and stand on the street corner and light up for all the moths in the county to come and fly around you, like the romance and the fantasy group keeps talking about, you're going to find yourself in serious trouble. The idea here, if it's a spousal situation, the first thing that you need to do is take a look at the situation that you're in. Is the falling apart of your marriage or your relationship going in a relatively amenable fashion before the twin flame came into the picture? Do both of the people in the marriage or the relationship, are they aware and are they already begun drifting apart? Are circumstances and their lives as a whole, for example, their financial situation, is it coming to a situation where the separation is taking place? Perhaps the two are becoming more and more independent of each other, knowing full well that the marriage or the relationship is coming to an end in any case. If you have somewhat of a similar situation like that going on, then why even throw gasoline on the fire? If it's already starting to dissipate and fall apart on its own, why throw something into it that's going to make it even more difficult and could actually set it aflame and makes it really difficult? That's one particular example. On the other hand, if you're in a relationship and it's an abusive relationship, being the male or the female, whichever the case is, being the abuser or the abusee, whatever, then you sure as hell don't want to tell them about the twin flame dynamic that's going on. And the other thing that I want to impart with people that are going through this kind of a situation is please, people, remember this, is once, and I know this has happened because I've seen a lot of people that have been going through this, I know full well that once someone suspects they have some kind of unusual or dynamic connection going on with somebody, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to Google it. They're going to find the internet. They're going to find twin flame sites on the internet. They're going to find all kinds of material on YouTube. And as many of you are going to find out the hard way, 95% of the stuff that you see up on YouTube is nothing but gibberish, mass confusion, chaos, and I'm going to be blunt, and I don't care what anybody else says. If this is called passing judgment, then so be it, because I'm not passing judgment. What I'm doing is simply stating a fact that everybody knows. I'm just one of the guys who, I don't give a shit if I say it out front and up front with everybody, whereas everybody else who would really like to say it doesn't say it because they're too polite. I'm not polite, and if people want to call me judgmental, that's fine too. I really don't care. Especially if it's going to save somebody in a situation like this, where they're going to do something based on some illusionary belief system or philosophy that somebody is spouting in the twin flame dynamic, that you need to go and tell your spouse and get on with it and blah, 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 and the rest of all of that crap, which is totally ridiculous. So if you've made that assessment and you're in that kind of a situation, I recommend that you don't even mention it, period, at all. The other thing that comes up is this, and I understand this, is when you have the dynamics set up and you're already in a relationship, the thing that you need to remind yourself of, is that the present partner that you're with right now and is beginning to fall apart even before you met or connected with the twin flame consciousness or the twin flame party or the twin flame person, whatever you want to call it, you got together with this person based on your old state of mind belief systems about love, relationship, and sexuality. And somewhere along the line, it began to fall apart. And as it began to fall apart, what happens is you now become open to receiving the gift. And the gift that I talk about is a gift that never stops giving. And that is what I call a heart center awakening. And the heart center awakening is one of the common denominators in the twin flame dynamics nowadays. It wasn't 10 years ago, but nowadays the heart center activation usually takes place, and it becomes very intense. It becomes a very dynamic experience, and it can be going both ways, not always, but it usually is going both ways between the two people. And what happens is all of the, shall we say, after the initial euphoria kind of tempers itself and dies down a bit, is then all the flaws, and I'm going to call them that, all of the flaws, or the, shall we say, all of the templates or the belief systems that have been placed into the person, programmed into the person, uh, and culturized into the person, or politicized into the person, or religiousized into the person, is all going to come to the forefront. And they're all going to be challenged depending on what they are, who you are, what race, what culture, environment, what part of the world that you come from. And all of this comes into play. So what happens is, in a lot of cases also, and this needs to be uh, expressed here, excuse me, is a lot of people when they're going on YouTube, for example, and they're looking at all of the twin flame stuff that is there, what's happening is you could be getting and looking at information. You might be in Europe, and you might be looking at the information that's in Europe, in your particular area, and you might find that the information there is at a certain frequency or a certain level. Whereas if you come and you listen to somebody giving information, like, for example, from Canada or the United States, the information is going to be different again. Because the information given, and even that I'm giving, is based on where I am and where my evolutionary process has taken me in the twin flame dynamic, which is, I might add, in a different page than a lot of the people that are up on YouTube giving information. So this is what creates the confusion, is every stage of the evolutionary pathway, or changes of personality that take place with people. Everybody is giving information based on that stage or that level that they're at, and their consciousness at that particular point in time. But more specifically, what I'm talking about is their personality development, and they're giving the information. So this makes it even more confusing. So you have to make an assessment after you have connected with the twin flame dynamic in the person to your present state, your present situation, your financial situation. Are there children involved? Are there, how many legalities are there involved? Is there property involved? You have to take all of that into consideration. And you have to take into consideration the environment that's going on also at that particular point. Now, the other thing that comes into play here is people continually have asked me, well, you know, I'm about to make this decision and I'm about to become involved, and what should I tell my family? Look at it this way. The way I'm going to address this is, and this is going to sound a little bit strange, all right? But then again, you can say I'm a little off the wall anyway. When you're considering sharing this twin flame dynamic with anyone in the family, the question I'm going to pose to you is this: which of your family members do you think at this time that you're going to propose to tell them about the twin flame dynamic, and you met your twin flame and the rest of all of it, which one of your family do you think intuitively has an active heart center, and two, quite possibly could be going through kundalini awakening, which would denote that they're possibly going through a spiritual awakening of some sort themselves? If you get a yes to your intuitiveness, then that's the family member that you should tell or share your experience with. For anyone else outside of that frequency or that vibrational pattern, no. I don't recommend you tell anybody else in the family just that person or persons, if there's more than one, who have some understanding of spiritual awakening and the process and kundalini energy. The one thing that I have found that is the basis for communication amongst all people on the planet, irrespective of culture or race, is if you can get into some kind of dynamic of spiritual awakening. You don't even have to, in many cases, mention the twin flame dynamic. You can actually just get into the symptoms of heart center activation, or, are they feeling energy moving through the body? Are they having strange dreams or symptoms of their body doing things in the dream state, or their body doing this, or their body's doing that? And you can find out a lot of stuff by just asking a few questions, and then from there can discern that particular situation. Now, the other thing that I want to go back to just for a moment, I said in the beginning, with friends don't bother at all right? And in general terms, I would stick to that statement. However, somewhere along the line, you may have a close friend who is going through a spiritual awakening. Again, the same thing applies. Birds of a feather flock together in this kind of a situation. And if you have a friend who has an open heart center chakra and it's functioning, and you can communicate with that person on that level, and you want to share it, that would be entirely your decision to do so. However, again, I don't recommend that as a general rule that people tell their friends about the twin flame dynamic, because in most cases they're not going to understand what you're talking about, and they're going to look at you like you're some kind of a nut job in that particular perspective. The other thing that I'm going to recommend here, and I'm going to be doing a lot of this in my videos from now on, and I'm going to be very repetitive about it, unfortunately for a lot of you, is we all have to start understanding that a great many of you that have been watching my videos for years already have active heart centers at various stages of development. We're not all on the same page. We're not all on the same vibration. And that's cool. Because if you had all the people on the planet waking up at exactly the same time with all of the stuff and signs and symptoms that we're going through, it would be a complete madness and insanity all over the planet, literally. So we're waking up in stages and groups and bunches at the appropriate time based on our particular state of consciousness and where it's at. And this is the way that it should be. So when we're doing this together, you have to keep in mind that one of the things that you can do and you need to start learning how to do, and this applies to everyone in the spiritual community, not just in the twin flame circle, is we all have to start realizing that at some point in the beginning we had no control, really no participation, and no idea, literally, what was happening when this thing opened in our chest. And we were literally at the whim and fancy of this heart center, which completely changed our life, which completely changed, in a lot of cases, our physical body, and completely changed our personality over an extended period of time. So therefore, now what's happening at this stage right now, we have a multitude of people who have fully active heart centers, who have personalities that have become somewhat stable and balanced, who are not polluted anymore with a lot of the old belief systems, ideologies, and philosophy, and can assess the situation without being seen as being judgmental, all right? I'm very good at assessing a situation, but when I talk about assessing a situation and making a statement, I'm judging. Why am I judging? Because I'm involved in a spiritual community, so therefore anything I say in that way is considered judgment, which is stupid, because it's not judgment. It is simply making a statement about what I have observed and felt and intuited about a certain stage or level of consciousness. So who cares? Really? What difference does it make? In a situation, and I've told everybody before, I'm not part of the spiritual community. I'm just here sharing information and knowledge. What you do with it is entirely up to you in that perspective. So if you don't like what I have to say, well, come back another time and maybe I'll like what, you'll like what I have to say at that point. I don't know how it works for you, but this is how it works for me. So the idea now is to start understanding the final thing that you can do here is start exploring, almost as if in a childlike kind of openness and trust, by combining the imagination and the heart center chakra, which I'm going to get into in another video here in a minute, and actually seeing in the heart center chakra how you would like it to go with your friends, your family, or your spouse. See it. And what will happen is as you're seeing it, you will get guidance or direction by knowing, by feeling, by intuition, what you're seeing is not correct for you. That doesn't mean it wouldn't be correct for someone else, but it's not correct for you. And this is the big difference. When we're doing the heart center focus and seeing and thinking, if you will, what one sees and thinks and feels and gets as a yes, another person may get as a no. Because the person that got the no, their circumstances may be different, so therefore they have to retune and fine-tune it again. And I'm going to talk about this in another video in a couple of minutes here. All right. And that's the way that you can do that. Try and attempt to do that, and you'll see that it will change things around you, and you may not find yourself in so difficult a situation. All right? Okay. Take care, everybody. And I'm glad I came inside because it was too cold and it's more comfortable in here anyway. Have a great day.